So for me, I think the most important part of the gacha system is to not impact the player's ability to enjoy the gameplay. Am I on a different fucking planet? I don't want to be that bitch. I'm really not trying to be that bitch. Is this guy dumb? It is happening. I am going to be talking about Arknights Endfield and why the space might not feel as innovative as it did. And I've already read these articles, and I have to say, I am a little concerned about these responses, because from Games Radar, they released an article where they actually sat down with one of the lead developers of Arknights Endfield to talk directly about its gacha system and to discuss how Genshin Impact influenced the lot of the gacha space that's come about recently. And I say this as someone who has tried to be pretty constructive when it comes to Arknights Endfield. I've not been particularly doomer about the game, but I've not been a major glazer either. I've been very critical of its gacha system. I've been very critical of its combat too. And this article, well, both of these kind of rung some alarm bells even for me, in my brain. And we're going to be talking about them today. So here's the title. Arknights Endfield lead says good gacha systems don't impact the player's ability to enjoy the gameplay. Already, I'm a little bit concerned, and Enfield is trying to fix its confusing gacha keyword here. So we're very curious to see what exactly they're going to do. We are also calculating how many pulls players can get every version. I'll be real, brother. This should be something you already know. There shouldn't be we're calculating. You should just know this off rip. You know, but whatever. Let's carry on. Even by gacha standards, progression and monetization Arknights Endfield is pretty confusing. Before and at launch, the newly released action RPG spin on Hypergriff's Arknights drew criticism for convoluted currencies, opaque character drop rates, and pity maximums, and a rotating banner system that obscures how your investment is tracked. In an interview with Games Radar Plus at GDC, lead developer Ryan, his preferred name for press, discussed the response to Enfield's gacha system and some plans to refine it. As well as the impact of these systems on games as a whole. Ryan acknowledges different responses to gacha systems between Asian and Western audiences. People can be critical about the gacha part of the game because they are not used to this monetization method, he says. But in East Asia, players are more used to this gacha system. Already, I'm kind of concerned. I think most of us in the West are familiar and know that in East Asia, gacha has existed and been way more popular for a lot longer, with monetization systems that were even more predatory and even worse for a long time. So a lot of people in East Asia, they're used to gacha systems being even worse than this, so maybe their level of tolerance for what they'll accept is greater than people in the West, right? We may have a lower level of tolerance of what we deem to be okay and fair, and they have a higher one. That is true, but it's a fact that even people in East Asian countries have had a problem with Arknights Enfield's gacha system and have raised critiques with it already. So framing this as just being well, you know, East Asia is okay with it, so the West just isn't used to this so far, is kind of a little bit, dare I say, tone deaf. And it feels like a way to pass responsibility onto being like, well, you guys just aren't used to it, right? But East Asia, it's a norm. Kind of don't really particularly like that response, and it kind of frames us away from the problem and shifts the blame someone else. This is called textbook goalpost moving of an issue right here already, and we're only just starting this article. But even some folks who fluently speak gacha balked at Enfield's dated and complicated setup. So, Hypergriff is eyeing improvements. Ryan says, we are giving out more in-game currencies for a start, and we use the questionnaire and our in-game data to see if players are feeling paywalled by the gacha system. Let me kind of refine this and translate this from non-PR corporate speak into actual words that you and I and everyone else can understand. They are not changing the gacha system. It's not happening, and they probably never will change the gacha system. It's too late. It's in place. It's been a period. If they change the gacha system now, everyone that has used it thus far, that has spent money on a system thus far, will complain. And if they ended up making it better, people who already paid money to the game could probably file lawsuits. Hey, you changed your gacha rates, you did this, you did that. They're not allowed to do those kinds of things. So I really doubt we're ever going to see a major overhaul or improvement of the gacha system. We did see kind of something like Genshin did with its capturing radiance. They implemented something additionally that helped people, but they didn't do any kind of massive overhaul. It could be a potential option for Arknights Endfield, but basically what this is saying, they just want to give you more in-game currencies. This is how I frame it. Someone takes a gun and they shoot me, okay? And the bullet goes through me. I'm now bleeding everywhere, okay? What you do is you put pressure on the gunshot wound to stop yourself from bleeding, okay? And so you don't die, and it temporarily fixes the problem. It doesn't fix anything. Temporarily, you're not dying, so you can hang on enough for you to go and get yourself actual medical attention to fix the problem. Because as soon as you take your hands away or you unplug the gunshot wound from your body, you're gonna be losing blood again and you die. To me, giving out extra pull currencies is just a way of like plugging the hole and not actually fixing the problem, right? Just because like you can give more currencies and people get more characters doesn't mean the underlying systems and foundations the whole thing was built upon is actually any good. To help offset or prevent that paywall effect, the opening hours of Enfield have been adjusted, Ryan says, and designated selection permits have been added to let players grab a character of their choice quickly. Most of the players can build up a top tier team in the current version, he says. Now, what does that mean, top tier team? Again, it's very vague. I think it's a good thing that they adjusted their pull economy rates at the beginning of the game, because that's the most important time. That's when people are pretty engaged. And I will say, a lot of people, you can get hooked into Arknights Endfield pretty quickly and end up doing a lot of factory building, but that doesn't really give you pulls. So being able to have more currency is going to be good for those opening people that are playing for the first 10, 20 hours, like whatever it is. But what does top tier team mean? One of standard characters or actually one of limited ones? I want to hear his definition of what top means. That's our goal, to give out more resources for players to build useful teams, he continues. And for players who think there are too many currencies in the UI, and it sometimes can be confusing, we're also trying to combine some of the currencies to make it more clear for players. I think this is a good thing, but I kind of have a feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of these currencies are not referring to as the actual gacha currencies. It's referring to like credits or stock bills or anything. There are so many different like things to collect and currencies in Arknights Endfield that are also unrelated to pulls themselves that I kind of have a feeling that's what they're referring to more so than pulls. It's a lot. Right? It's a lot in the game, right? Like I can go into the acquisition center, okay? We have the Originium exchange right here. We have the Aura barrels that you can use. You can exchange your Originium for Aura barrels. We have all the bundles that you can get. You have the Arsenal exchange for weapons where you have the Arsenal tickets. You've got everything from the quota that uses AIC quota. You've got bond quota. You've got endpoint quota. You have credit score. You have stock bills. There are so many different kinds of currencies in this game that it can definitely be overwhelming for people. I think of the devs of Arknights Endfield, they wanted to do this thing of like, there's always stuff for you to do. You can maybe do an endgame, maybe you could do a factory, maybe you could do your dailies. Like they always wanted something for you to do, but it's kind of resulted in them having 50 different currencies for you to manage, and that could be overwhelming. But I feel like this has nothing to do with like gacha, right? I feel it's nothing to do with gacha and more about like everything else to do with the game. So kind of maybe a little bit misleading talk here, I'm having a feeling, but either way, I still think refining the different kinds of currencies that you can obtain in this game to be a positive thing nonetheless. In a follow-up comment, a Hypergriff representative clarified that these gacha optimizations are at a discussion level with no firm changes to share immediately. Bro, this gives me like, oh god, Ryan just went out there and said we're gonna change a bunch of stuff quick. We gotta let them know that, like, we're just talking about it. We're not actually gonna do anything. We can't promise anything. It's just a discussion. Guys, it's just, bro, this gives me, I'm just imagining the conversation they had just afterwards. Ryan's coming, you know, to the back to his team, say, yeah, you know, man, the interview went well. You know, I told them we might do this with the gacha system, and everyone around him, the face drops, and they're like, brother, what did you say? We can't do that. You realize we can't do that, right? We can't change our gacha system. We're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to go back and tell them we're just discussing it. Nothing's implemented for sure, just discussion. So this could all be potentially fucking bullshit. It's just hearsay. Could be, couldn't be. Just keep the people happy, I guess. Like many of today's Western gacha players, I got into the genre through Genshin Impact, and I've tried other games since. I still play Genshin regularly, but from day one through to today, gacha systems have always seemed to me like something you tolerate, not something you enjoy. High rolling is fun, sure, but there's a flimsy defense of a predatory system which I compare to alcohol, fun in moderation, but entirely capable of ruining you, sure. I asked Ryan about the unavoidable friction of a gacha, a monetization first, fun second system built around luck and scarcity, and how he defines a good gacha system. He says, the important part is to find out how players in-game are affected by the gacha system. We have to ensure that players, including free players, are not paywalled by the system, he adds. They can experience all the content. For us, it's important to monitor all players, including the free players, what team they are using, what difficulties they are facing in the combat of the world and dungeons. Can they build and experience most of the game content? That's a major concern for us. Okay, so again, this feels like a lot of just PR kind of speak to me. You know, like we want to make sure that you guys aren't paywalled. This means that we want to see if you're playing the game and you're getting all the pulls free to play. Are you able to create teams that are able to currently deal with the content of the game? But here's the thing, usually at launches of games throughout 1.0 to like 1.1 patches even, most people are still going to be rocking a lot of standard characters, and it's expected that standard characters are going to perform pretty okay or well until a number of patches have gone by and people could start making teams that are more limited. Now, that's definitely something to keep note of Arknights Endfield, because they have a lot of banners, right? Like every 2 weeks, they cycle through a lot more limited characters than you would usually. So that whole thing, that whole team building is going to be happening a lot quicker. So we're going to see if content actually adjusts to that or not. But right now, I don't know how much we can rely on, like, hey, are people being able to do the current content? Like, obviously, it's a good thing to measure and keep a look at, but most people are still going to be rocking a lot of standards. We are also calculating how many pulls players can get every version to see how many characters they are expecting to get. Again, why are we calculating? This should be calculated. You should already know. This should be already a factor in your decision making. This seems like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and you don't know how many pulls they're actually releasing into your game. Those feedback questionnaires and in-game data ensure that, to minimize the impact of the gacha system on the game experience, so most of the players are not affected by the system to enjoy our game. But still, there are options for paying users to acquire more characters, more combinations, and play the games in a more personalized way. Guys, it's personalized. It's not mandatory, it's simply personalized, queen. Slay. So for me, I think the most important part of the gacha system is to not impact the player's ability to enjoy the gameplay. Am I on a different fucking planet? I don't want to be that bitch. I'm really not trying to be that bitch. Is this guy dumb? So for me, I think the most important part of the gacha system is to not impact the player's ability to enjoy the gameplay. Brother, half of a gacha game's experience comes from the actual characters you physically play in the content, right? I've never denied this. Never denied it. I like the fact that, like, in Arknights incorporates a factory system so you can enjoy that besides just playing the actual characters themselves like other gachas. I do like that, and I do appreciate they have those systems, but you can't deny that gacha systems inherently do impact players' ability to enjoy the gameplay, because playing the characters is at least half of the game itself. Am I on a different planet? What are these developers saying? What is this dev saying? Am I crazy? This is a lead developer of a gacha game, and he's out here saying the most important part of a gacha system is not to impact the player's abilities to enjoy the gameplay. That's what it's there for! That's literally what it's there for, so you can pull characters to have a different gameplay experience. This is, like, what is the point in having a gacha system at that point? If you care about not impacting the player's ability to enjoy gameplay, don't include a gacha system in your game. Am I dumb? Like, am I being stupid? Like, this is why I decided to make this video. This and another reason from the other article, but like, what are we saying? What actually are we saying? The necessity of pulls per patch math demonstrates the irreconcilable give and take of gacha systems. At best, they could be more generous and less frustrating. Personally, I find myself hoping for less gacha craft entirely, and more games like X Asterisk and No Strings Premium RPG released by Hypergriff, publishing on Griffline in 2024. Ryan says X Asterisk was one of our attempts to try out other possibilities of the JRPG on mobile, and reasons there must be other possibilities for these games to develop in the future, but maybe we need to try more ways of monetization. We need to try more ways to get your money, guys. Maybe don't have a gacha system that's so ass and more people will play the game. Like, I don't know. Maybe let's stop blaming it on, hey, people in East Asia are used to it. Just suck it up, boys. Like, gacha system is not to impact the player's ability to enjoy the gameplay. I'm actually losing my mind. Okay. And there's more. There is a follow-up second article. Okay, there is a second article has hit the towers. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to. Arknights Endfield dev says launching a new gacha RPG in post-Genshin Impact world is tough when some titles are so similar that players go into a game for 1 hour and they know what will happen in the next 20 hours. Oh boy, they're now blaming Genshin Impact. They're now blaming gacha slop rotation. Bro, it's happening. We're goalpost shifting again. Turning your RPG into a factory building sim is one way to stand out. New action RPG Arknights Endfield turn heads not just because it's a major release from Hypergriff, home of Tower of Defense powerhouse Arknights, but also because none of those other post-Genshin Impact gacha action RPGs have tried turning themselves into Factorio yet. I am someone who has played Factorio. I played it like 10 years ago. I was there before it was cool. This mix of genres immediately stood out, and I'll be damned, it actually works. Lead developer Ryan of Hypergriff tells me the factory and automation side of the game was something the developers wanted to try, but it does have the added bonus of feeling different in a space crowded with similar RPGs. I've said this a lot and was one of my most positive things about Arknights Endfield. It has a section that doesn't feel like the traditional 3D RPG gacha, and I like that. I like having more game in my gacha game. That's different, and I think more games should do that as they release. At GDC, I spoke to Ryan about the risks of launching any live service game in 2026, an intimidating task even to Marvel Rivals devs, and how the gacha landscape in particular has evolved and started to settle. In the years since Genshin Impact's massive launch, more and more open world gacha action RPGs have cropped up, and that doesn't seem to be stopping. Just look at the likes of Nevernes to Everness and Silver Palace. There are so many similar titles nowadays, Ryan agrees, and we still think that players are expecting something new. Yes, surprisingly, when new games come out, players expect the games to be a little bit different at least, okay? For some open world RPG gacha games, for some titles, they are so similar that players go into the game for 1 hour and they know what will happen in the next 20 hours. It's like build teams, fight the dungeons, and get rewards. I think we can all agree that gacha games will do what works, right? You get your characters, you build them up, you have your stamina sort of like loop rotation that you go through, you have your gear grind that you always go through, and you know, you tend to have banners that are kind of similar, like a 50-50, pity reset, 2 characters a patch. It's a familiarity that people know and they recognize. And that is a fair thing to say. Our hope is to make something different for the characters, he continues. We actually decrease the cost of building teams so players can try out more combinations, and we are giving out more free pulls in the current version and the next version for players to get more characters to try out different combinations. I don't know about you guys, this changes nothing. They're saying our hope is to make something different for the characters. Being able to build them quicker, it just means you get to your endpoint progression quicker. You get to an end game quicker. You get to the end quicker, which is fine, but don't frame that as you trying to be different. That's not being different. It's still falling into the same repetitiveness that everyone is familiar with. The same thing that you say that like once you've played 1 hour, you've played 20. Okay, well, now you've done it from 1 hour to now you've played 10. It's still the same, you just get into the endpoint quicker. This is not different, it's the same, but less time is what you're putting forward in this article right now. In the current combinations, this is still comfortably in the realm of collecting, building, and piloting teams of characters, which is standard for gacha games. Yes, Enfield's not doing anything different here, and this claim that they're not doing anything different at all whatsoever in this regard. So team building and the typical gacha rotation is the exact same. Enfield finds a bit of an edge in its commitment to factory building mechanics. True, but that's not the same thing as like the typical gacha rotation, because once you've built your factory, and then it's the normal gacha grind, the normal stamina burn, okay? That's really the loop people are talking about, is wanting a different gacha stamina loop, what to spend your stuff on. Challenging players to construct and optimize resource pipelines and lightly terraform the world around them. You don't have to invest a ton of hours into it to get a workable resource farm going, but for the sim-minded, there's a good bit to tinker with. And it is a fun aspect of the game for sure, but can we not pivot this character building and saying that it's different just because you're speeding it up to, well, you have the factory too? Like, that's not how this works here. In a lot of open world games, the world is more aesthetic, Ryan says. Players cannot influence the world, so the factory building part introduced some of the experience from the sandbox games, which makes players feel different. That's fair. And we find that on average, players spend more hours in our game than other similar games because of the sandbox. The building part is something new to them. And that's true, I do think that is something that keeps retention early on into a game, but the problems will always arise once you've finished all that, which you can get a good 10, 20, maybe even 30 hours of fun out of those aspects of the game, like a normal single player game. You absolutely can. But then it's the same thing of waiting patch cycles to have an update, to build a little bit more of your factory, but every day you still have to go through the daily rotation gacha grind. Overall, Ryan says Enfield players are putting in a lot of more time in the game than we expected, with the folks who stick with the game spending tens of hours in the system for factory building. Fine, that's cool, not a problem. Our strategy is that we are not going to make it harder and harder, he explains. We don't want players to go deeper into the calculations and math. We just want to bring some more new, more different, but not harder game mechanics into the building system in future versions. I assume he's talking about the factory here? Building systems in the future? They don't want to make the factory harder? Because they're definitely not making the actual gacha game part harder. From what I've been hearing. So I assume they just don't want to make... Okay, fine. Okay, sure. Threading the needle on potential depth and necessary knowledge, essentially, I gather. Just as Arknights has introduced new game modes over the years, including its own spin on auto chess, Ryan says that the Enfield team is preparing different gameplay to introduce in the future versions. Good! That's what people want. People looking for the next thing, the next actual piece of content for the game. I was initially interested in Enfield precisely because it is doing something I haven't seen in any of the post-Genshin games, because Genshin feels a little too limiting, but a lot of these types of RPGs do share some kind of DNA, so I'd love to see it get even wilder with gameplay styles and genres, and that I do agree with, okay? But I do feel like we have to take note of an audience or a group of players noticing that, Arknights Endfield is doing a lot of systems that we're familiar with, and therefore maybe we find them boring or not as engaging, isn't a fault of Genshin Impact and its influence, right? You as the developers, you have the option and the choice and the duty to innovate and to change, okay? You can't blame people for pointing that stuff out. It's not people getting used to things, it's people not tolerating bad systems, right? That's kind of how I see it. People no longer, after being, however, it's been 5-6 years since Genshin Impact has come out. People have played a variety of gacha games, Honkai Star Rail, maybe they played Tower Fantasy, maybe they've played Wuthering Waves. They're now very familiar with these kinds of gacha games, and they know the warning signs to look out for now. So the tolerance for bullshit has massively decreased over time. There's no getting away with things anymore. Any new gacha game that comes out has to know it's going to be scrutinized and criticized way more harshly day one than any other gacha games that have ever kind of been released. More so than Wuthering Waves even was, okay? More so than Honkai Star Rail. Any new gacha game is going to get critiqued, so they have to come out the gate running. And we can't blame people for pointing out bad practices early on anymore. And we can't blame things like Genshin when you are a game developer and you specifically choose to add to that familiarity. You choose to implement stamina systems. You choose to implement gear grinding. You still have all the hallmarks of what all these other games have. So you can't be surprised when people say, you've played 1 hour, you've played 20. You choose to associate yourself and be part of that statistic too. So I just thought these were two kind of very interesting articles that I thought that kind of made my alarm bells go off in my head. It really did. But I hope this wasn't too ranty. It's currently 10 in the morning. And I hope, this all kind of was interesting to you guys, but I appreciate y'all. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more of my rants about this kind of stuff or whatever it may be. I'm live every single day on Twitch, Kick, wherever you like to watch streams. Come over and say hi. We're very, very friendly, and I appreciate y'all, and stay silly. Peace.